Welcome to the Brad and Taylor Show. Today we have Beau Dunfee.
You're listening to The Brad and Taylor Show, a podcast that inspires entrepreneurs to pursue their passions. We're sitting down with some of the best to learn how they got started and some lessons they learned along the way.
Hey, Beau.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
We're good.
We're doing good. So tell us a little bit about you and kind of what you actually do.
Sure. So my name is Beau Dunfee. I'm a real estate broker in South Bend, Indiana. Born and raised in the South Bend area. After high school, I went to Indiana University in Bloomington for 4 years, and then took a year off and went to law school at Notre Dame, and graduated in 2013 from law school. Passed the bar and initially worked for a title company here in the South Bend and Indianapolis. Kind of moved from both places, doing complex real estate transactions, title insurance, underwriting, deal doctoring, deals, transactions before they got to closing or even during closings, drafted legal documents for them. I did that through the year 2015, at which point I made a career change to stay in real estate, but work for my family's real estate brokerage here in South Bend. So I'm now becoming the third generation owner of our company, and I'm now the managing broker, and we have a staff of about 35 agents that are working, and we're currently third in market share within our area, St. Joseph County, Indiana. So that's
awesome.
Kind of quick backstory.
That's awesome. So when you said you went to law school, so when you were growing up, like what was your plan when you went to law school? Was it to go right into real estate stuff, or was it like something else? What was your plan?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because I always knew I wanted to be a lawyer, but I didn't know what kind of lawyer I wanted to be.
Yeah.
And I would caution anybody that's thinking about law school or knows anyone that's thinking about law school, it's not what you want to do. You want to identify what part of law you want to get into, whatever interests you. I'd recommend that you go meet with an attorney or two or three that do that field, and get to know what they do, maybe shadow them for a couple days, ask them every question you can think of, and really understand what you're going to be doing before you go into law school, because come to find out, a lot of sectors of law aren't as exciting as someone might think. So you can kind of be pigeonholed, and I've seen a lot of people I went to law school with and other lawyers out there that don't really like what they do, because it's a lot of paperwork, it's a lot of boring aspects to it. 95% or higher of cases never go to trial. They just get settled in the back room. So I recommend thinking about that deeply and understanding the field before you go into it. So when I grew up, I always wanted to be a lawyer. I didn't know what kind. I feel like I did find my calling within real estate. Both my parents were realtors. Both of my parents' dads, so both my grandpas were realtors. So it's kind of in my blood. I resisted it for a long time. I never thought I would get into real estate growing up, in college, even in law school after that, until things started to maybe make sense to go that route. So, yep.
Yeah. Being the third generation in your family, is there any advice that you were given from not even just your family members, but from anybody when you switched over to real estate?
Yeah, I've got one that I learned from my dad, and if there's any agents listening out here, I'll give this tidbit for dealing with sellers. So the very first week I started in real estate, we went to a listing appointment it was one of my dad's friends' parents that were going to be selling their house. And we sat there and measured the rooms and took notes and did everything. But then we sat on that couch with them for at least an hour after. So we were there a total of an hour and a half to 2 hours. And when we left, I asked about that. And my dad said, never end the conversation. Never excuse yourself or end the conversation when you're sitting with the seller, especially the first time. So get comfortable with them. Accept a glass of water or coffee if they offer it, and continue the conversation and keep it going, but don't be the one to get up and leave or initiate leaving. Let them do that, because you're in their home, you're a guest in their home, you're vying for an opportunity to list, market, and sell their home, which is usually people's biggest assets. So it's a big deal, and it's something you should really pay attention to. And another thing that we got from that conversation was when he lost a listing, whenever he lost a listing, he always asked, what could I have done differently or better to earn your business? Because that answer can be really revealing.
Yeah.
It might be awkward to ask, but at that point, if you're not getting the listing, you might as well find out why, at least, so you can maybe change some of your marketing presentation or how you operate, or know what little thing changed was a decision point for them. And one of the decision points that when he lost a listing, was that the spouse of his friend, when they were speaking at the listing appointment, he never looked at the spouse. He was always looking at the
Gotcha. Okay.
the husband, and
Yeah.
just looking at him, and never included her in that conversation. And then she felt that was enough reason not to go with him. So I took that, learning in my first week of real estate, to take that above and beyond, where I'm always checking in with both spouses and making sure I'm making eye contact with both,
Yeah.
and getting their seals of approval backwards, and back and forth on stuff. So not only within the listing appointment, but throughout the transaction too, because sometimes you can only get a hold of one of them, or one of the spouses is more communicative, or it seems like more of a decision maker, but you never know. And it's not gender specific, because some families operate differently on who's making the call with the real estate choices, or who's in charge of the family. So I always check in and, like, hey, I know I'm talking to you right now, but did you check with your spouse to make sure that you're good there too? Because they're going to have to also sign this agreement. So just always checking in and making sure there's a mutual understanding. And if they said we don't need to check with them, they'll sign whatever I okay, that's fine. We'll go that way from now on. But I always just want to make sure to include them. Hey, do you want me to give them a call to loop them in real quick? I don't want it to seem, and that's really gone a long way. Working with sellers on that interpersonal relationship with them.
Yeah, definitely. And I know you mentioned the first time, when you don't leave that conversation, accept that water, accept the coffee, continue the conversation, that's going to help build that relationship. So I like that you've taken that advice and that you've put it to good use, I'm sure, over the years, just because if you don't build that relationship, it's not going to get you very far.
Yeah, I'm sure this other sales, and this is applicable to other sectors of the economy, but it's a general sales tip. You don't want to check your watch. You want your phone on silent. You don't want to look at it. You don't want to do anything to wrap up. Just let it go. I always try and bookend, or make sure I don't have an appointment right after a listing appointment. I'd like to make that be at 4:00. And if I get home at 6:30 that night, I get home at 6:30. I don't like to jam them in where I have to have somewhere to go, because invariably, whenever I've had to end something, it seems like that didn't quite go as good as it could have. So
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, especially if you feel like you're rushing, if you're overbooked or whatever the case may be. If you feel like you're rushing out, they will probably feel like you're rushing out as well.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, that is really good advice to give everybody who is starting out. Is there anything that you can remember from when you first started transaction-wise that kind of is a learning experience? Is there anything in a transaction that you have maybe learned from?
Yeah, maybe like something big, like maybe
Yeah.
you're like, oh, I'm not going to
Like
do
something
that
didn't
anymore.
go to plan or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch that I could think of when it comes to that. As far as an oops moment, let me think on that for a second.
I know, especially with newer agents as well. I mean, you're thrown in sometimes and you don't know.
Yeah, I've got one. I would say, and this is a managing broker who's responsible for 35 people. I would prefer that they check in with me than not check in with me. Even that means calling back multiple times to get a transaction figured out, whether it's on the front end to get it listed, or to get the contract put together, or it's nearing closing. I want that phone call or that email or that text to make sure the agent's good with it, and to make sure that the clients are protected. And it's much more difficult for me as a managing broker to undo something that could have easily been fixed on the
Mm-hmm.
front end to try and undo that on the back end. So I would say anyone new that's starting out in real estate, you should be not afraid to go to your managing broker, or find a managing broker that's going to be there for you when you have all the questions that you're going to have, because no transactions the same. It's always a learning
Yeah.
experience. I'm hearing about new stuff every day, and I've been doing this almost 6 years now. And I was in real estate before, where I heard of crazy stuff going on with the title company. But just last week we had a buyer's agent show a buyer and her family a property. We got it under contract, and then apparently the buyer and her family came back to see the house, just walk around the outside of the house a day or two after they got under contract, and one of the daughters opened a window and went inside and was messing around in there.
Oh,
So
wow.
I'm having to deal with that of, all right,
Yeah.
is this transaction still going forward? What's going on? And then just today we had buyers in a closing, and the survey finally came. So it was late. Surveyors are really busy right now. Survey came while we were in closing, and it revealed the pool was sitting smack dab in the middle of a 15-foot drainage and utility easement.
Oh,
So we're trying to unpack that. What's that mean? What's the risk? What
Mm-hmm.
happens if the buyer signs? What happens if the buyer no longer wants to buy the property anymore? So we were kind of working our way through that. That leads into another really good piece of advice, is to always get a survey for your buyers, or at least recommend it. We equate that to, that's like getting an x-ray before surgery. You want to know what you're buying, where the property, where the improvements, so the house, garage, shed, pool, fence, where all those are on the property. Make sure they're not encroaching on neighboring property, and make sure the neighbor's property and their improvements aren't encroaching on your property. Because if you close and it's done, not much the buyer can really do at that point if they waive survey. So we highly recommend it. It's usually $200 to $250, and it can create more headaches for you as a realtor to get to see the transaction all the way through, because if something comes back on that survey, you have to work through it. But as fiduciaries to our clients, we at least need to tell them, hey, it's a really good idea to get a survey. You as an agent should have 1 or 2 surveyors in your Rolodex that you can make sure that they're available, maybe give you a discount if you're going to be sending all your survey business to them. But that's just another big thing where, in this instance, the drainage and utility easement, it just means the utility company is going to maybe need to come through and fix wires here and there. They're not going to rip up the pool. They're not going to tell you to remove the pool. The pool was built in 07, so there was a permit issued at that time. We can't get a hold of it though, because the county gets rid of the permit every after 10 years. They get rid of their paperwork. So that's just this morning some stuff I was dealing with. So yeah.
Wow. That's crazy. So tell us a little bit about your brokerage now. We haven't really talked too much about what your tell us about how to get started, and tell us, you said you had 35 agents. Is it tell us a little more about that?
Yeah, so our company's name is Weinchart Realtors, Jim Dunfee and Associates, and like I said, we're in South Bend. We started in 1958 with my grandfather as Jim Dunfee Realty, and then somewhere in the 80s we affiliated with Century 21. So we were Century 21 Jim Dunfee Realty through the 1980s up until 2010, at which point we switched affiliations to affiliate with Weinchart Realtors, who's out of New Jersey, and they're rapidly expanding nationwide and have a lot to offer me as a managing broker, and our agents and our home sellers and buyers that we're working with. They have almost a 50% market share out in New Jersey. So we kind of are riding that wave and have really been able to expand our operations over the past several years. So we're 35 agents. We're relatively small. There's a couple other companies in town that have 100 plus agents. But of our 35 agents, we're really built to allow agents to high produce and get to that 6-figure take-home number is our goal, if the agent wants that to be their goal. So we have an in-house processor that also used to work at a title company. So we essentially have a title company here, between me having been a attorney for a title company and a processor. So we're handling the agent's paperwork as soon as they get under contract on a home. They'll deliver all the paperwork, the disclosures, and everything, and we'll start to order the inspections, get the lender figured out, get the appraiser figured out, get the title company all the paperwork they need, and see it through. So it really gives our agents an opportunity to, instead of the next day after you get under contract, deal with all that stuff, all the tasks, administrative stuff. We're doing all that, so they can either go back out and sell more,
Mm-hmm.
or they can take the day off or spend it with their family or go to the beach. They don't have to worry about making sure the septic inspection's set up, when it's set up, and can the septic inspector get in and all that stuff. So we see that through, and then as the inspections come back, if other contractors need to come out and take another look or get quotes and bids on stuff, we're pretty much handling all of that. So it really just allows our agents to keep producing as much as they want to or enjoy more free time. So we've kind of looked at it where it allows our agents to delay the need to hire an assistant, either extend that time until you actually need to hire one when you're really busy, or it can delay that indefinitely where you never need an assistant because we have that support among our staff here. So that's kind of how we operate, and we pride ourselves on having really good training too. So
Yeah.
my dad's still training new agents. I'm hopping in and training new agents. So our agents are pretty well known around South Bend that they're the best trained. So our newer agents are writing contracts that are solid and tight. There's no loopholes. It's not, they're all being reviewed. But we just make sure our listing contract, our purchase agreement, and everything is rock solid.
That's awesome.
Yeah, awesome. Is there anything that you want to accomplish for your team in the next year? Do you guys have any goals set in place?
We don't have. I mean, being third in market share was an important goal, and we're there as far as residential sales within St. Joseph County. So I want to continue that trend. Getting to 2 or 1 is going to be really tough because those are the 2 brokerages that have over 100 plus agents. So of our 35 agents, I think I'd have to check because we're halfway through the year right now.
Yeah.
How many are in the actual top 100 of our 700-ish realtors that are in town? But last I checked, it was 17 or 18 were in the top 100 of the 700. So
Oh, wow, that's
just
nice.
continuing that trend and then trying to grow. We are trying to grow. We are hiring right now, but I like to make sure it's a really good fit. That's a good culture fit within our company.
Mm-hmm.
That is someone that presents themselves well. We just don't take anybody that has a real estate license. We want to make sure it's a good fit. So continuing to grow by, I would say, 1 agent every month or every other month. I'd like to get 6 to 12 new agents per year.
Okay.
So that's a goal. I look at my roster, and there's several that are going to be retiring soon. So it's a lot of production that needs to be replaced. So kind of working on some exit strategies for them to where we can still refer business back and forth and take care of their clients as needed. So that's something I'm focusing on, but those are a couple things.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know you said you guys are looking to grow and get new agents on. With that, are you guys looking for anything specific with the agents that you guys take on board on your team? Is there anything that you want to make sure they have?
There's a couple of things I look at, and this is what I tell anybody that is thinking about getting into real estate. If you can present yourself well, if you can spell, and if you can get back to people, we're in really good shape. So making the appointment that you have with me to meet is important. If you miss that meeting or you're late to that meeting, that's a pretty big knock. And then one I've introduced recently is that I want whoever I'm hiring to at least have bought 1 house before.
Okay.
That's a good idea.
I found it's pretty difficult to get into real estate and be a broker without having ever even bought your own home. Because how are you going to advise somebody else on that when you haven't done it? So and that a lot goes with that. There's a lot of prerequisites to be able to buy a home. You need to have a steady job. You need to get a pre-approval letter. You need to have done your taxes the right way. You need to get to a point where you're able to make that leap into home ownership. So I would say to anybody thinking about getting into real estate, if you haven't bought a house yet, it's probably not the right time to do it. It's an uphill battle. I'd rather you go into luxury car sales first. I've converted a Mercedes-Benz car dealer who's a young guy. He's mid-30s, but It was a really good prep for getting into real estate because it does teach you a lot of sales skills, even
Oh
though
yeah.
homes and cars are different in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
And it introduces you to a clientele that allows you to jump from $70,000 to $100,000 cars. The homes they own are like 10x that. So you're able to have a list of clients if you're keeping track of those people that you've sold cars to or interacted with and hustled for them to get them their car they want. You have an immediate client database that you can tap into when you jump into real estate, and it kind of teaches you, because it's the same thing with presenting yourself well at a Mercedes or other luxury car dealer. You can't just slouch it around. You need to be well dressed and deal with the sometimes picky clientele that is, likes things a certain way, and it's a really good introduction. So seen it firsthand, real estate or car sales, insurance sales, so that you get to know real estate that way too, with homeowners insurance and liability and coverage, what that all means. I'm trying to think where other people have jumped over from, but those are two that jump out at me.
Yeah.
I see a lot of people come from like the restaurant industry, like servers and stuff like that, especially because they have not like all the the sales experience. I've seen a lot of that transition over nicely that I've seen before.
Yeah, quite a few cars, like you mentioned, the car salesman. Yeah. That gives you good background with that too. Just get you experience with the sales in general.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Well, how can people get a hold of you? What's your guys' website and stuff?
Yeah, so best way to get a hold of me is just Beau@BeauDunfee.com, and Beau is spelled B-E-A-U. Dunfee is D-U-N-F-E-E. So 2 E's at the end, Beau@BeauDunfee.com. BeauDunfee.com, I think, is almost done being rebuilt. Then our brokerage's website is DunfeeHomes.com. And we have Weinchart.com as well, but that's more kind of the national brokerage. So DunfeeHomes.com is our local brokerage where you can find all of our listings and get a hold of agents that way. And then Beau@BeauDunfee.com is the best email to get a hold of me. If you have any questions or any follow-up based on anything you heard from our conversation today, I'd be happy to talk to anybody about that.
That's awesome. Thanks for coming on and sharing your story with us today.
Absolutely, guys. Thank you.
Are these working?
All right.
Here we go.
Oh, there we go. I think they're working. Should we tell them?
Mine keeps falling. It doesn't like my voice.
What do we got to tell them?
Subscribe.
Subscribe? What do we got to point at? Hey, I think there's a subscription button. Like
it might be there.
It might be right there too.
Somewhere.
Find
it. It's red.
Yeah. And it's blue. It's green. I don't really know.
It's a color.
This mic isn't even attached. Did you plug these in? Well, I guess.
I wonder if they can hear us.
Yeah, I wonder if they hear us. Well, we should probably tell them if they can hear us. We should probably tell them also give us a 5-star review for listening to on Apple. That'd be cool.
5 stars, guys.
Share it with everybody they can think of.
We won't take 4 stars.
I mean, Taylor, I don't even think these are on. I mean,
I don't think this is working.
This is not working.
Yeah.